Thank you. So I'll talk a little bit about the world's greenest battery. And our friends at Bulb here, he didn't like talking about the future. He only wanted to talk about what he has done. I will only talk about what we are about to do. See if this works. There we go. Anyone who's followed the news the last 48 hours know we're in trouble. Actually worse than we thought. And not only in trouble, we have an energy system not being sustainable, but we also waste about 2/3 of all the energy that is produced out there, which is very, very unfortunate. So just to give an idea of how things could be better in terms of sustainability, this is wheel-to-well fuel efficiency. We talked, Bulb, previously about biofuel. So if we take 1 square meter of land and grow crops and make biofuel out of it, and then use that to power a car, we get about 7 kilometers of range. If we instead turn that into, use that 1 square meter of land for solar, and turn that solar electricity into hydrogen, and then have a hydrogen fuel cell, we get about 160 kilometers, a vast improvement. And if we just skip that phase and go directly from electricity and into an electric car, we get about twice that, about 380 kilometers. But in order to do that, we need storage and, in this case, batteries. Batteries aren't perfect, but they just happen to be better than the alternatives we have right now. So 2 of our founders, Peter Carlson, Paolo Cerruti, they both spent about 5 years on the management team of Tesla together with Elon Musk, which probably is an achievement in and of itself. And there, of course, one of the big challenges was how do we make batteries cheaper? Such that we can build cars and sell them for around $35,000 so they can reach a mass market. The answer to that was the Gigafactory, which when it was conceived basically doubled, when finished, would double the production of lithium-ion batteries in the world in order to significantly push down price. Next step after making batteries cheaper is, of course, to make batteries greener. And here's where we come in. So Peter and Paolo, both Europeans, they moved to Europe after Tesla. They started looking at what's going on in batteries being hugely important. Them having been part of setting up the Gigafactory, knowing what they know, it's actually not a very good idea that we don't really have a whole lot of stuff going on in batteries in Europe right now. So it's a very Asian business. So they took a step back and said, okay, so how could we do this differently? Not just cheaper, but also much greener today. So we have a very comprehensive scope, starting with mining, looking at refining. We're doing most of the active materials production and raw materials refining in-house. This is super energy demanding, producing active material, production of batteries, and starting recycling our own scrap of batteries, and then having a fully circular business model where we aim to retrieve our batteries after end of life and recycle them to produce new batteries. We aim to do this in Sweden, where energy is far cheaper than here, way up north in Sweden, where we can connect it directly to hydro and thereby push down the carbon footprint of battery production. Raw materials come into play. For starters, we will be getting our raw materials from pretty much the same place as everyone else. So that means Congo, that means Chile, that means a lot of other places. But actually, these raw materials are available. They're in the bedrock of Sweden, of northern Russia, Finland. The bold names here are active mines. The non-bold are yet to be open mines. Just in the last year and a half, the Swedish Mineral Research Institute has given out 47 new permits for cobalt only in Sweden. So there actually is a lot going on in mining as well. We are right now in Stockholm. That's where we have the Northvolt headquarters. We're building a factory in Västerås, about an hour by car from Stockholm. That's the industrial mecca. This is a demonstration lab. We're doing all our R&D. And we've started the construction of a gigafactory up in Skellefteå, about an hour's flight from Stockholm. And that's also where the Sweden's hydro energy is coming from. And it's also the center of the mining community for Sweden. The world's greenest battery. So if you take the process we're running in Sweden, or will be running in Sweden, comparing that to what is done in Asia right now, this particular case is China, where most of the battery production is fueled by coal. And for an EV battery of 75 kilowatt hours, this turns out to a reduced carbon footprint of about 4 tons. It's a huge difference. And we will be serving a couple of different markets. We want to speed up this transformation, and we want to make sure that this happens in Europe and that the European companies and people can be part of this. So first of all is automotive, the by far largest market, cars, trucks, and buses. Second is grid that we spoke about a little bit earlier, Verve, Bulb, and others. Home batteries do make sense here in the UK. They don't in Sweden, for example, when energy is much cheaper. But also, we need to be able to store batteries and store energy in time, not just being able to move it around geographically. So today, for example, Germany has a lot of solar power. They produce so much solar that certain times of day they have an excess of solar. So they pay other countries to get rid of the excess energy. Switzerland, for example, they're good at arbitrage. So they take this energy, they get paid to take this. They use it to pump up hydro into their dams and then sell the electricity back to Germany when they need it. Industrial applications, we're doing a lot of work in underground mining right now. It's one of those use cases where it already pays to go electric. About 30–40% of the cost of running a mine is ventilating the exhaust fumes from the mine. So if you can go electric, you can turn down that enormous ventilation equipment and start saving money right away. Ferries already becoming electrified very quickly. In the end, we'll have electrified airlines as well, although that's probably one of the areas that'll take the longest. But you have these smaller ones flying. Airbus and Boeing are already doing flights where they're replacing one of the engines to battery powered, for example. And then portable, which is actually the largest market today. Vacuum cleaners, robotic lawnmowers, etc., growing 20–25% a year. It's going to become the smallest business ahead, but it's really important for us when we start. So this was mining. This is Epiroc. We just delivered our first packs to them. We've done this with batteries that third-party batteries. We bought them from Asia just to get started until our production is up and running. So this is the facility in Västerås. It's about a 370 megawatt facility. This is enough to, under 1 month's production, produce enough batteries to build roughly 200 cars. So we'll be working with lots of companies doing prototype series of batteries here. We have our R&D there in order to do large-scale prototyping for the future cars and products we'll see ahead. This is what it looks like about a week from now. I think is another week, and then we have first part of the structure up and running. This is completed in first quarter. We have all the machinery ordered. It's almost all of it's coming from Asia, mostly Japan and Korea, some of it from China. And we should have our first battery produced in the third quarter of next year, and then production up and running from 2021. We have in Skellefteå, this is kind of what it looks like. This is not the pretty pictures, but we're building the factory there in 4 different installments, 32 gigawatt hours, so roughly the same size as the gigafactory. Pretty much some of the same people involved. And we're building 8 gigawatts at a time. We decided to speed up that a little bit. So this is from Skellefteå about a week ago. So we've cleared ground, and we're doing a lot of the preparation to start construction in next year. So the blasting should be done in March sometime. We're out fundraising for this one. We've raised the money for the first small factory, and this is sort of next step we have ahead of us. It's really big. Just to give you an idea, so this is a bird's view of the plan. This is Wembley Stadium. And if electrification doesn't happen, we'll just go over to football, indoor soccer or something. So this is basically where we are at right now. It's super exciting. All the European companies we're talking to are also very, very eager to make sure that this happens. About 2 years ago, we went from politicians saying, wow, this is exciting, good luck. And about 1 year was, wow, this is really exciting, can we help? And now we're at the point as, okay, this cannot fail. Let us know how we can help. Thanks. Did I make you time for questions?
You were very, yeah, you were very brisk. So I'll give you time for a couple of questions very quickly. I think Carolyn from Build Power earlier, and correct me if it was a different speaker, talked a little bit about the number of cycles that a Chinese-made lithium-ion has to kind of complete before it actually becomes greener than the fossil fuel alternative. What you're talking about is immediate payoff. When you're talking to people, how much is that an attraction? How much is the, and how big a difference is this going to make in terms of the carbon emissions of some of the products that you talked about?
So there's been numerous research papers written about this, and it seems that it doesn't really matter which energy system you're in. It still makes sense to go electric if you're going to produce a new car rather than a combustion engine car. I think for a lot of people, energy and being green is super important. But when it comes to consumer applications, it has to also become cheaper. If it's on par, we can see what happens in Norway. In Norway, they have a lot of incentives around electrification, or rather they have disincentives for combustion engines, and roughly a little bit over 50% of new cars are electric there. And so when we reach price parity, that's when it really starts to happen here. And that's probably maybe a year or two out.
You're talking about some fairly aggressive timescales, but also you're talking a couple of years, before this at scale. Obviously, we're starting to see companies like Scion in the States bringing solid-state alternatives. That's obviously going to start with small electronics. But when you are thinking about what you're manufacturing, are you thinking this is going to be lithium-ion? Are you kind of preparing for different alternatives? What's your feeling about the near-term future of these kind of battery technologies?
So even if it goes solid-state, it's still lithium-ions going back and forth. Lithium is at atomic number 3, so it's probably not going to be replaced anytime soon by something even lighter there. In terms of technology, we have a technology roadmap that stretches about 10 years out. We're very, very confident the first 5 years. There's lots of great research in batteries out there. Actually, Europe has a lot of it too. And there's fantastic batteries like graphene batteries. But being able to produce something, and when we're up and running in cylindrical cells, something like 4 to 5 million cells a day, so a couple of billion cells a year. And being able to produce that with a really, really high level of quality is super difficult, and it takes a lot of time to industrialize that. So, and qualification times are really long. So for a car builder, it usually takes about 4 years to qualify a new battery into a car. And thereby, it's going to take probably more like 10 years until we see something like solid state. We do have polymer gel batteries in our pockets in our cell phones, so that's one technology that's kind of halfway there. But it's still a ways off until we have solid state in our cars.
It's an exciting time, and we will watch with interest. Martin Anderlind, Northvolt, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.